Ukraine's president speaks before the U.S. Congress, debuts a shocking video. On December 26, 1941, British Prime Minister Winston Churchill spoke before a joint session of Congress. He implored our government and, by extension, all Americans to join in the war against Nazi Germany and Hitler. That moment of a wartime president speaking in our capital happened again this morning, March 16, 2022, 81 years later, as Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelenskyy addressed Congress and an estimated 300 television networks across the world that interrupted their regular programming to broadcast live. Notable exception, Russia. Zelenskyy challenged President Biden, quote, to be the leader of the world, to be the leader of peace, end quote. In the emotional address, Zelenskyy showed a dramatic video of the real results of war. The world was stunned at the pictures. Watch this.
As the leader of my nation, I am addressing the President Biden. You are the leader of the nation, of your great nation. I wish you to be the leader of the world. Being the leader of the world means to be the leader of peace.
While we are watching the real consequences of naked aggression, Queer News Tonight also reports on the significant consequences for the LGBTQ+ community in Ukraine. The head of an LGBTQ rights group in Ukraine has had to flee the country's capital. Insight Chair Olena Shevchenko left her home in Kyiv this week and evacuated to Lviv, a city in western Ukraine that is close to the country's border with Poland. Shevchenko on Tuesday told the Washington Blade that she had fled Kyiv because of, quote, bombings, the absence of working possibilities, medicines, and some food as well, end quote. Shevchenko said she continues to work to help LGBTQ Ukrainians who remain trapped in Kyiv and in other cities that Russian forces continue to attack. Shevchenko said, quote, it's pretty hard. I think I'm almost at my limit. Our activists from the LGBTQIA+ communities are staying and keeping working, providing support to the most marginalized ones. Honestly, I don't know how long we will be able to resist, but we will do our best for sure, end quote. Meanwhile, across the border in Poland and Hungary, activists are assisting LGBTQ+ Ukrainians as they escape the war. This is especially notable over human rights abuses that both countries have committed against the LGBTQ+ community. Reports continue to filter to Queer News Tonight that differences over sexual identity seem to be set aside during the crisis in order to provide aid. Victoria Radvani, an organizer for Budapest Pride, and Justina Nakilska, an advocacy officer for the Campaign Against Homophobia in Poland, are among the countless LGBTQ+ resources aiding LGBTQ+ Ukrainians. Nakilska said, quote, "All of our team members are engaged in helping Ukraine on many levels. When it comes to direct help, we launched a network of LGBT-friendly flats, people from the private sector who are offering accommodations for LGBTQ+ refugees," end quote. Similarly, Radvani at Budapest Pride said that they were busy accepting calls and emails from LGBTQ+ individuals who in Hungary who wanted to open their homes to refugees as well. She said, quote, "We are offering basic material and help like food, clothing, medications, legal assistance, transportation to other countries. We also participate in advocacy efforts on the local, national, and international level," end quote. Nakilska said that the team gathered more than 40 LGBTQ+ organizations in Poland and prepared special posters and leaflets on the type of help being offered to Ukrainian LGBT. The situation for the LGBTQ+ community in Ukraine and for the border countries coming to their aid is evolving daily, and Queer News Tonight will stay on top of the breaking developments.
You know, I saw the latest number was 2.5 million refugees, and if statistically, let's say 5 to 7% of them are LGBTQ+, that means there are about 125 to 150,000 LGBTQ people rushing towards the border with only this to look forward to at that. So God bless them for the work they're doing on that.
Yeah.
That video was very hard to watch, boys.
Very hard.
It was really hard to watch. It's one of those things where we know there's a war going on, but without seeing it like that, then that just made it real. You know, we've heard the stories. We've heard the stories of the dog rescue woman who dropped off the food and then got blown up.
She got blown up.
Okay, or the gentleman who carried his German Shepherd 10 miles to get to the border. There's so many stories like that, and just to see it in video that way made it so real to me.
I only see clips here and there about. I haven't really been keeping up as much as I probably should. But what are the other countries doing? Is all the other countries
there's
doing
been
anything?
a tremendous response. The one issue is the MiGs from Poland to get to air cover. Another $100 million was approved in air defense. The response worldwide, I think, is, to be honest with you, I think is just breathtaking, the unity of support. But we're dealing with a degree of evil, and I haven't said those words before until right now. We're dealing with a degree of evil that is just going to continue to require more.
And it's unfortunate because, you know, the government doesn't represent the people. You know, I have so many Russian friends, and, you know, it's like people judging us based on Donald Trump. You know, Donald Trump did not speak for all of us.
Yeah.
And the same thing with the Russian government. You know, the Russian government does not represent all of the entire country.
Of course not.
You know.
Of course.
I have
Of
to
course.
agree. I spent a whole month in Russia in college, and the people there were amazing. So
Yeah.
reaching out to them just to see how they're doing, and they're just as devastated
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
see this happening.
And to see Zelenskyy, how very just humble and asking Biden for help, saying you could be the leader of peace. What could Biden do, Al? Like, what is he expecting for the United States to do?
Well, currently, the ultimate thing that this video was designed in front of the U.S. Congress, President Biden is watching it. He wasn't present, but he's watching it, and the American people watch it. The statistic in our report of 300 television networks around the world breaking into their live programming is an indication of how important today's moment was. We make the comparison that this hasn't happened since the day after Christmas in 1941. And Winston Churchill literally came hat in hand to the US Congress and said, democracy in the free world is hanging in the balance, and if America does not come in, there may be a big loss to Adolf Hitler and Nazis. And that's what Zelenskyy was banking on today. The question is, do we risk all-out war over these images? That's the question remaining. We're pouring billions of dollars now into this. The Europeans have united. Sweden and Finland has united in just an unbelievable way. That is so significant for the political gurus to bring Sweden and Finland into conversation of potentially joining NATO. This is an absolute disaster for Vladimir Putin.
Yep.
An absolute disaster.
I'd like to come back to the video for just a moment, if I may. As absolutely heartbreaking as those pictures are, they're equally as dangerous to collect. You saw some of them with a Reuters or an ITV. There are journalists out there that are covering this war that are saying, no, these people won't. Two of them were killed this week. Another one is
from Fox,
from Fox.
right? And they didn't even put anything about it.
And
read
the New
about
York Times.
it.
Oh no, the
Yeah.
Fox News.
Yeah, they have.
They did.
Exclusively, yeah.
But I just want to say their names. Pierre Zashevsky and Sasa Kushinova were both killed. Ben Hall was seriously injured in his attack. They gave their lives so that we can have these videos, so that we can know what's going on and not forget and not turn our eyes away from it.
You know, I also think one final note before we go to you, John. I think it's very important that we're doing this story. This is the lead story at Queer News Tonight on the day that Zelenskyy has spoken in the joint members of Congress. It's very, very important because we are not NBC. We're not Fox News. We are Queer News Tonight, and we speak to a queer audience. And this moment today, and him speaking with what's going on in Ukraine and him speaking in Congress, it's very important for us to focus our attention on LGBT. There's plenty of others focusing attention in so many different ways. They do a great job, my goodness. I agree with you in terms of the media. This story is important for two reasons, in my opinion. This story is to remember that in Ukraine, there are LGBT people that are fighting to save other people's lives. That is a fact. The second thing is that we are in a situation where in Poland and Hungary, who are traditionally, we've reported it 50 times at Queer News Tonight, are traditionally anti-LGBT. They're anti-LGBT zones. They've set that aside, going, this is more important than our cultural beliefs on the LGBTQ community. Save lives, feed people, shelter them, keep them warm. And the LGBTQ organizations in Europe and the money coming from the United States, I think, is breathtaking to remind us all that, thank you for quantifying the potentials of the numbers of people that are fleeing and that are affected. This is a very important story to LGBT. And the third reason I think this is a very important story is I hope to goodness that LGBTQ America is paying attention to this. Because just like in 1941, we could have turned our eyes away and said, that's your problem. It is not their problem. It is all of our problem now. And that's what that video proved today.
Yes, it did.
LGBTQ plus news is vital for our community and for the broader world as a whole. We have enough enemies at Fox News. Tucker, Sean, and Laura are loud. We need passionate allies. Happening Out Television Network, Queer News Tonight, and It's Happening Out are literally out of the closet and into the headlines. Our community needs your support. Like this broadcast and subscribe now to ensure the growth of the entire LGBTQ plus community.